interesting results that came up with the personality test. It gave me an overall analysis of my personality. Now,
I don't do that, but after reading it, what part do you like best about that profile that you have or the personality that you have?
Well, I got some interesting results that came up with the personality test. It gave me an overall analysis of my...
It gave me an overall analysis of my personality.
Now, of course, this wasn't a scientific test. I didn't meet with trained psychologists or anything. This was just like...
Trained psychologists. I didn't meet with trained psychologists or anything.
One of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes, just answering some basic questions up with the personality test. It gave me an overall analysis of my personality. Now, of course, this wasn't a scientific test. I didn't meet with trained psychologists or anything. This was just...
Trained psychologists or anything.
Just like one of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes, just answering...
This was just like one of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes.
Some basic questions. So
just answering some basic questions. So
I'm not going to say that my test results are in any way scientific, but I do.
So I'm not going to say that my test results are in any way scientific, in any way.
I think that they described scientific test. I didn't meet with trained psychologists or anything. This was just like one of those things that you do on the internet in 10 minutes, just answering some basic questions. So I'm not going to say that my test results are in any way scientific, but I do think that they describe me to an extent.
But I do think that they describe me to an extent. I do think that they describe me to an extent.
And some things that I liked about it was that I got 0% on the psychopathy results, which was
reassuring. And some things that I liked about it. Some things that I liked about it was that I got 0% on the psychopathy.
Sometimes but I do think that they describe me to an extent. And some things that I liked about it was that I got 0% on the psychopathy results, which was reassuring.
Psychopathy. I do think that they describe me to an extent. And some things that I liked about it was that I got 0% on the psychopathy results, which was reassuring.
Sometimes I feel like maybe I have my emotions buried too deep inside. Sometimes
I feel like maybe I have my emotions. Sometimes I feel like maybe I have my emotions buried too deep inside, and sometimes maybe
I'm not as caring as I could be, and not as I could be.
Empathetic as could be. Maybe I'm not as caring as I could be, and not as empathetic as I could be. And sometimes maybe I'm not as caring as I could be, and not as empathetic as I could be.
However, I guess as I get older, I'm getting a little softer, to be honest. But
however, I guess as I get older, I'm getting a little softer, to be honest.
To see 0% there, that was just nice. One thing that...
To see 0% there was just nice.
I didn't like about my results was it said that I am statistically prone.
Statistically prone. One thing that I didn't like about my result is that I'm statistically prone to stress.
Stress. 87% higher than the general population.
Stress. 87% higher than the general population. Than the general population. Than the general population. However, I guess as I get older, I'm getting a little softer, to be honest. But to see 0% there, that was just nice. One thing that I didn't like about my results is that I'm statistically prone to stress, 87% higher than the general population.
Wow. So that is not great. Also more prone to mental illness and neuroticism. So that's not great.
Not great. Great. So great. So that is not great. Also more prone to mental illness and neuroticism. So that's not great. So that is not great. Also more prone to mental illness and neuroticism. So that's not great. Neuroticism. Mental illness and neuroticism.
Not the best.
Not
no,
the best.
I think of better things.
Not the best. No, I can't think of better things.
Not the best. 87% higher chance than the general population, but
not the best. Not the best. 87% higher chance than the general population.
It did say that I'm 89% more organized than most people who do this.
But it did say that I'm 89% more organized than most people who do this.
I don't know if that is true or not, but
I don't know if that is true or not, but I guess.
I like organization and
organization. I guess I like organization. Not the best. 87% higher chance than the general population, but it did say that I am 89% more organized than most people who do this. I don't know if that is true or not, but I guess I like organization.
I like routine, and I like habits, and I like schedules.
I like habits, and I like schedules.
So whether I actually live by them or not, I'm not sure.
Whether I actually live by them or not,
I'm not sure, but enjoy that, and that came out in my results as well.
So whether I actually live by them or not, I'm not sure, but I do enjoy that, and that came out in my results as well.
It also said that I'm very competitive.
It also said that I'm very competitive. It also said that I'm very competitive.
Which I agree with. Maybe not competitive in a very direct sense,
like in
life, I guess,
or in my
career. I'm not super competitive, but if I'm playing a game with somebody.
I'm not super competitive, but if I'm
playing sports with somebody or I'm watching sports, I feel very competitive in that kind of situation. So I totally agree with that.
As well.
So I wonder where the stress and the thing comes from, because I'm looking at the profile.
Interesting. So I wonder where the stress and the thing comes from. So I'm
like, why are you so prone to stress?
I'm like, why are you so prone to stress?
Maybe it's
it's
paying attention to
to
details.
details.
Maybe are you a perfectionist? Right?
Paying attention to details and maybe
Example?
I'm not exactly agree with that as well.
Interesting. So I wonder where the stress and the thing comes from. So I'm looking at the profile here. I'm like, why are you so prone to stress? Maybe
I'm like, why are you so prone to stress? Maybe it's
paying attention to details, and maybe are you a perfectionist, for example?
Perfectionist, and maybe are you a perfectionist, for example?
I'm not exactly sure. Now, the test that I did, Anna,
I'm not exactly sure. Now, the test that I did, Anna,
was one that I can share with our audience.
I'll put the link in the episode description. It was an MBTI
find what type you are, but
finder to find what type you are, but
also had some other questions related to different types of psychological tests built in as well.
So I think maybe that was part of some questions that were outside the MBTI, which gave me that result, I'm thinking. Psychological test related to different types of psychological tests built in as well. So I think maybe that was part of some questions that were outside of the MBTI, which gave me that result, I'm thinking.
It's a good profile, Andrew, don't worry. It's a good profile. I mean, all of them are good. They're all very different, and
it's a good profile, Andrew. Don't worry, it's a good profile. I mean, all of them are good. They are all very...
It's nice to hear about different people's, I don't know how...
It's nice to hear about different people's... I don't know how
they are and their different
personalities. But I like...
About schedules being...
I like the one about schedules being
organized and planning
because I'm so like that. I love a plan.
Whether I stick to the plan...
Whether I stick to a plan...
That's up for debate, but I love a plan.
I love a schedule. I love a schedule. I love a plan. I love a plan. I love a schedule. One
big thing for me is
regarding planning is like traveling or going anywhere. I need to know the plan. I need to where I'm going. I need to what time the train is. I need to where the train's dropping me off or going into.
Those type of things I'm kind of obsessed.
Those type of things I'm kind of
about that. So we're traveling or going anywhere. I need to know plan. I need to know where I'm going. I need to know what time the train is. I need to know where the trains dropping me off or going into. Those type of things I'm kind of obsessive about that.
I'm kind of obsessive about that. I'm kind of obsessive about that. Almost obsessive. So
we're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff.
So we're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff. We're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff. So we're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff. So we're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff. We're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff. We're on the same wavelength with the planning stuff.
That's so interesting because when it comes to traveling... I'm with you on I want to know where my train is leaving at what...
I'm with you on I want to know where my train is leaving at.
Train platform, at what time. All of those things, I'm with you on the same page.
I'm with you on the same page.
But that example of traveling is interesting because I kind of like traveling with no plans. Having a kind of chaotic travel.
Having a kind of chaotic travel.
I don't know exactly what's going on.
Chaotic. having a kind of chaotic traveling, having a kind of chaotic travel where I don't know, chaotic.
I don't
do
too much
too
planning
much
when I
planning
travel.
when
Of
I'm
course,
travel.
when
Of
I'm going
course,
from
when I'm
point A
going
to
from
point B,
point A
I
to
like to
point
make sure
B,
that's organized, but
I like to make sure that's
I
organized.
never make
I
like a
never
daily
make
itinerary
daily
or something. Like,
itinerary, something like
in the morning we're
in
going
the
to the
morning we're going
museum,
to
and
museum,
then in the
and
evening we're
then
going to this
evening we're
restaurant.
going to this
I'd rather just
restaurant.
kind
I'd
of
rather
walk
just kind of walk
around and
around
find some
and find some interesting things and
let
let
life
happen
happen
to me rather
plan
than
things out.
plan things out.
Which has
Which
caused
has
some
caused
arguments
some arguments with
past
past travel companions, to be honest.
It's my travel
But
style.
it's my
It's your
travel
travel style.
style.
It's your travel style.
It's your travel style. It's your travel style. Travel.
I mean, I don't have like an itinerary of each day.
I don't have like an itinerary of each day.
But I have to say that when I'm traveling, I mean the transport. Like the idea of, I know some people who are like, just get to the airport like half an hour before.
Yeah, I would just get to the airport like half an hour before.
And I'm sort of like shaking, that
I'm sort of like shaking like.
Stresses me out.
That just stresses
That stresses me out.
So yeah, I'm definitely a planner.
Definitely a planner.
I like scheduling and things like that. I agree with my profile more or less, as I said before.
I agree with my profile more or less, as I said before. I agree with my profile more or less, as I said before.
One thing I really like about the profile is the inner world. So
one thing I really liked about the profile is the inner world.
This is one thing that it comes out a lot, that I have a very rich inner world.
This is one thing that it comes out a lot, that I have a very rich inner world.
Maybe some of the listeners are like this as well, but I feel like
maybe some of the listeners are like this as well, but I feel like there's a part of me that nobody will know, not even a partner, my family, my best friend. There's always a little part of me that is like just for me.
It's really hard to describe.
It's really hard to describe.
I'm always thinking about things in my head. Whenever I'm doing anything, I'm always thinking.
Whenever I'm doing anything, I'm always thinking about
X, Y, Z, I don't know, whatever. So I have a very best friend. There's like always a little part of me that is like just for me. It's really hard to describe. I'm always thinking about things in my head. Like whenever I'm doing anything, I'm always thinking about X, Y, Z, I don't know, whatever.
X, Y, Z, I don't know, whatever.
So I have a very rich inner world. That is kind of just for world.
It's like a secret world. It's like a secret world. Secret.
It's really hard to describe, but that's...
It's really hard to describe. It's really hard to describe. But
one of the things
that's
that
one of the things that
stands
out
out
for me in that profile that really rings true when I think about my personality and what I'm like.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember those kinds of questions coming up on the personality test asking me about imagination, inner world, that kind of thing.
Imagination, inner world.
It was a little bit difficult for me to answer them just
because I don't have a standard. It's hard to answer the questions like, are you a very imaginative? Are you a very imaginative person? Imaginative. Are you a very imaginative person? It's like...
Do I imagine? Yeah, but...
Do I imagine? Yeah.
Am I more imaginative than you?
But am I more imaginative than you? Imaginative. Am I more imaginative than you? But I'm more imaginative than you? Imaginative.
have no idea, right? I don't know where that standard is, how to compare.
I don't know where that standard is, how to compare. So
those questions are really difficult for me to answer, but I guess maybe that indicates something, right? If you know very innately, like, yeah, I'm a really...
If you know very innately,
imaginative person, I have this world. I have no idea, right? I don't know where that standard is, how to compare. So those questions were really difficult for me to answer, but I guess maybe that indicates something, right? If you know very innately, like, yeah, I'm a really...
Innately. If you know very innately, like, yeah, I'm a
imaginative person,
I'm a really imaginative person.
World to myself that I feel like is my own.
I have this world to myself that I feel like is my own.
Then you could really easily answer the question, and because I guess don't, maybe that tells me something about my level of imagination.
Maybe I don't know. It's just one thing that stood out for me a lot, and they ask you.
It's just one thing that stood out for me a lot.
Lots of different questions, and we were talking about this, that, you know, I mean, there are obviously criticisms about these type.
I mean, there are obviously criticism about this type of test.
But
I mean, there are obviously criticism about this type of test. Obviously, there are obviously criticism about this type of test.
I think they're good at getting a broad brush. You know, what do you like?
Broad brush. They are good at getting kind of broad brush.
In some certain situations, and they can be actually really useful for figuring out, especially with people that you work with on teams, where they are, maybe the best way to interact with them, or maybe why they might be reacting in a certain way.
Maybe why they might be reacting in a certain way.
You don't understand.
Because
I don't know why they always do this, or
I don't know why they always do this, or
I don't know why they find that offensive, or
I don't know why they find that offensive. I don't know why they find that offensive.
Or why they're so sensitive about this.
Why they are so sensitive about this.
So doing these types of tests, can be really useful, but I wouldn't read too much into it. You have to be careful.
I wouldn't read too much into it.
Careful, like I said, understand.
I wouldn't.
She might be like, I don't know why they always do this, or I don't know why they find that offensive, or why they're so sensitive about this. So doing these types of tests, can be really useful, but also I wouldn't read too much into it. You have to be
too much into it. I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't read too much into it. You have to be careful.
Careful, like I said before, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
You are not just your profile on this test. You know, there's much more to you as a person than that.
That's much more to you as a person than that.
But I do love doing these types of things. Any opportunity to do like a personality test at work on a team building.
Any opportunity to do like a personality test at work on a team build.
I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I love it. I think it's fun.
Have you ever done one with a professional that was administered by a psychologist or a doctor or somebody who had a deep understanding of these kinds of
like a personality test at work on a team building day? I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I love it. I think it's fun.
Have you ever done one with a professional that was administered by a psychologist or have you ever done one with a professional that was administrated by a psychologist or
psychologist or a doctor or somebody who had deep understanding of this kind of test.
Yeah, I have actually, and I got the same result. So
I have actually, and I got the same result.
Done a very light version, and
I've done a very light version and
the really, really in-depth ones as well.
I've done the really, really in-depth ones as well. And
I've done other types of, there's different ones available that give you, different things, but they're all more.
I've always other types of, there's different ones available that gives you, different things, but
more or less the same. It's just kind of.
But they're all more or less the same. It's just kind of
how they package it. Yeah, I have done it with somebody quite thoroughly.
Yeah, I have done it with somebody quite.
And it was the
thoroughly, and it was the
INFJ every time.
So
yeah. I'm definitely in that box.
I'm definitely in that box.
So stepping back just a little bit, instead of talking about our individual personalities,
Stepping back just a little bit instead of talking about our individual personalities.
To get your perspective, Anna.
I want to get your perspective, Anna.
On the MBTI itself, because the reason that we're
talking
about it here today is one of our listeners named Taeyong. She wrote to us on Instagram actually and
asked us to talk about this topic,
and she's from Korea,
and I know it is huge in Korea.
It's
a very popular topic of conversation. Recently I met a couple of friends, and they were asking me about my MBTI. I've had my students ask me about it. Sometimes even in the English classes that I teach, my students will introduce themselves with their MBTI as part of their self-introduction. So it's extremely popular here in
Korea.
I know that in Canada it's also popular, but more for like you're saying about team building or in the corporate world.
I'm wondering
corporate word, but I'm wondering,
as someone who's living in Spain and as
someone who's living in Spain, as someone who's from the UK. In the two countries, is the MBTI very popular?
So, based on my knowledge of the UK, because actually in Spain.
So, based on my knowledge of the UK, because
I haven't worked in a Spanish company. My knowledge would be about the UK, but yeah, in the UK, it's super popular. And
it's super popular.
Interesting that you mentioned that
people use it as part of their introduction, and it kind of becomes like talking point and
which one are
a discussion point, like, oh, which one are you?
Which profile are you? And you're like, oh, I'm an INFJ. What are you?
And you're like, oh, I'm an INFJ. What are you?
I have heard that
I've heard that some people really like to use it as a form of telling people who they are, but then again,
it's like a double-edged sword.
But again, I think that can be,
because you can say, "Oh, I'm this," and and you're like, "Oh, I'm an INFJ. What are you?" I have heard that. Some people really like to use it as a form of telling people who they are. But again, I think that can be. It's like a double-edged sword, because
double-edged sword. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like a double-edged sword, because you can say,
"Oh, I'm this,"
I'm this, and then
people will react to you based on that,
rather than actually getting to know you
and forming an opinion about you.
Forming an opinion about you.
You know what I mean? So
do you know what
I mean? If I say to you, I'm an INFJ, you're like, oh, Anna's introverted. So
if I say to you, I'm an INFJ, you're like, oh,
I don't know, maybe because people always think introverted, boring, and I'm sick of.
Because people always think introverted boring. People always think introverted boring.
it.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. It doesn't mean that
just because you're
it doesn't mean that you're boring just because you're
introverted. I think
introverted.
it has such a bad rep.
I think it has such a bad rap.
So
it's like good,
but also I can see how
people might change their reaction based on you saying that.
Classic definition of the quiet introvert is not really accurate because we are two chatterboxes here on Chatterbox talking a lot, and we both said that we are introverted. And I like the expression that you used just a moment ago, double-edged sword. Could you break that down and just explain what that idiom?
Could you break it down and just explain what that idiom means to everyone?
If something is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
If something is a double-edged sword,
it's a great expression, and we use it.
It's a great expression, and we use it
a lot when we're debating topics. And basically, what it means is that there's a good side and a bad side. Essentially,
there's a good thing and a bad thing.
It's a good one to know. And you'll notice people using it a lot when we're talking about different topics, because normally things have something good and something bad. So it's a really nice way when you're debating with people to express what you want to say.
Yeah, when we're comparing things, you know, sometimes
when we're comparing things, you know, sometimes it can be a little awkward.
Normally things have something good and something bad, so it's a really nice way when you're debating with people to express what you want to say.
Yeah, when we're comparing
things, you know, sometimes
it can be a little awkward to compare things.
A little awkward. It can be a little awkward to compare things.
In that kind of situation, you could say there's pros and cons,
pros and cons, or
minuses. But personally,
there's pluses and minuses. But personally,
I've never liked that expression pluses and minuses. It sounds a little awkward. But double-edged sword is a nice expression to use when something has good points and some bad points about it. Helpful
or when it can be helpful,
hurtful,
that kind of situation.
So to finish up, Andrew, I thought it would be interesting. We talked about what we like.
I thought it would be interesting. We talked about that we like, but
if you could change any aspect of your personality,
what would you change?
Well, now that I know that I walk around feeling more stressed out than most people, I think I would
finish up, Andrew. I thought it would be interesting. We talked about what we like, but if you could change any aspect of your personality,
some good points and some bad points about it, or when it can be helpful or hurtful, that kind of situation.
Helpful or helpful, that kind of situation.